Chapter 1752 Formation only. The eyes of Shah Hu and the strong middle-aged person collided in the void. There seemed to be fierce sparks splashing the void. All the people in Sea Palace were afraid, taking a breath, standing aside trembling in fear. For a long time, Shah Hu sighed, his eyes were no longer so overbearing, and he said to the strong middle-aged person, "Wayan, Yankai is a guest of Old Man, and Old Man comes to entertain you. Bring someone back." Hearing what Shah Hu calls middle-aged person, Yankai immediately understood the identity of the other person. Sea Palace Grand Palace Master, Jiang Wayan. Speaking of which, Yankai has also heard Jiang Huan's name before. It was the first time he participated in the Heavenly Fate City auction, and he personally produced a void grade low rank congealing void pill was bought by this Jiang Wayan with a lot of money. At that time, I heard Wei Guchang said that Jiang Wayan bought the congealing void pill for his own son. But this is the first time that we have actually met. Yankai deliberately or unintentionally looked at the Grand Palace Master of Sea Palace, and found that this man's strength had also reached the void return stage peak, and his aura was a bit thicker than Qian Tong at the beginning. It does have the qualifications and abilities to act as the Sea Palace Grand Palace Master. And this guy is also very courageous. I don't know what contradiction is between him and Shah Hu. Anyway, it seems that the relationship is not so harmonious now. Jiang Wayan said with a slight smile, "Shah Martial Uncle is wrong. Although this sect Master Yang is your guest, he wants to collude with Sea Clan. Please forgive me, Martial Nephew cannot sit idly by. Martial Uncle, you should also know how deep the entanglement between Sea Clan and my Sea Palace is. Every year, my Sea Palace disciple has examples of tragic deaths under Sea Clan, Sea God. Those guys at Palace, it's not an exaggeration to say that I'm the enemy of Sea Palace's life and death. Martial Uncle, since you know this person, please avoid suspicion for a while. It will be handled by Martial Nephew. Martial Nephew will know it. Give Martial Uncle a satisfactory explanation." Yankai raised his brows, faintly aware that the owner seemed to be involved in the vortex of the fight, and this fight obviously came from Jiang Wayan and Shah Hu between. It seems that every family has a difficult sutra, Yankai secretly sighed. "Wayan, do you have to be like this?" Shah Hu's face became gloomy, not at all withdrawing. "Martial Nephew is for Sea Palace consideration. Jiang Wayan is very straight, showing no evasiveness or guilt. Also please Martial Uncle forgive me." Shah Hu stared at Jiang Wayan gloomily. Saint Yuan showed signs of urging him, as if he wanted to attack Jiang Wayan. Perceiving this, Jiang Wayan not only is not afraid, but also reveals the expression of be eager to have a try, as if he would like Shah Hu to hurry up. "Old Shah, what is going on here?" Yankai asked confusedly. Shah Hu turned his head and glanced at him, sighed, ashamed. "Old Man has some excess tendency to clemency, so you are tired." "Old Shah is serious." Yankai laughed, "It's just that you are like this. I am a little unfathomable mystery." "Wait a moment, Old Man will solve the matter, and I will talk to you again," Shah Hu said. "Okay." Yankai nodded, put on a posture of looking up from the wall, smiling and looking all around. Shah Hu turned his gaze to Jiang Wayan, and said with a heavy tone, "Wayan, you were one of my unborn geniuses at Sea Palace, but he was too narrow-minded. Old Man thought that for so many years in the past, you were in the position of the Grand Palace Master again. Standing tall and looking far away will change somewhat, but you let the Old Man down. No matter how high you climb, how deep the cultivation level becomes, Jiang Wayan always it is the Jiang Wayan that year, nothing will change." Being accused by Shah Hu in front of so many Sea Palace powerhouses, Jiang Huan's face was obviously a little uncomfortable. Annoyed said, "Martial Nephew doesn't work, Martial Uncle bothers." Shah Hu slowly shook his head. "The country is easy to change, but the nature is hard to change. Old Man has been missing for 300 years, this time Sect Master Yang helped out. After returning to Sea Palace, I am no longer ready to participate in the fight for power. As long as it can bring me opportunities for development and growth of Sea Palace, whoever sits in the 3 Palace Masters of Sea Palace is fine. You think Old Man will compete with you for the Grand Palace? Where is the Master? A joke, something you don't like to hear. Now that the Sea Palace's Palace Master is, Old Man really doesn't take it seriously." Jiang Huan's eyes were slightly twitched, staring at him. Looking at Shah Hu, as if trying to see if he was telling the truth or lies. Yankai on the side showed a clear expression, and finally understood why the owner was treated by this kind of. Obviously because Jiang Wayan treats the gentleman's belly with the heart of a villain, thinking that Shah Hu's return threatens his status, so he will make things difficult for him in every way to suppress Shah Hu. As for colluding with C-Clan and so on, it's just a good excuse, that's all. Even if there is no such excuse, C-Palace will look for other reasons. It can only be said that Own just stepped into other people's rights to fight for Vortex, and they were used as a bargaining chip. And Shah Hu obviously did not want to compete with Jiang Weian for power. He has lived in gloomy Soul Island for 300 years. He has long been bearish on fame and fortune and so on. In this life, he only pursues the more powerful martial Dao. But Jiang Weian is also the Grand Palace Master of Sea Palace. Shah Hu is not happy, and will not take action against him, but can only bear it. This is why he would say Own excessive tendency to clemency. Jiang Weian came forward to threaten Yang Kai, and Shah Hu forced him to come forward, making him unable to bear it anymore. All kinds of thoughts flashed through Yang Kai's mind in a flash, allowing him to guess the root cause of the situation in a short time. Old man will give you one last chance. I apologize to Sect Master Yang. I will assume that this has never happened. From then on, you are still the Grand Palace Master of Sea Palace. As for old man, you can stay away from the Sea Palace and never return. Shah Hu looked at Jiang Weian coldly, his tone beyond doubt. The latter's eyes are beating, and within both eyes there is obviously anger burning. Shah Hu rely on age to show of age. Saying this kind of words to him in a commanding tone obviously made him extremely unhappy. If it is true as Shah Hu said, he will apologize to Yang Kai in a low voice, then the majesty of his Grand Palace Master will fall immediately. When people talk about him in the future, they will only think that he is the puppet that Shah Hu arranged in front of the curtain. This is something Jiang Weian absolutely cannot tolerate. Martial uncle, you are the person with the highest standing in my Sea Palace. Martial nephew has always respected you, but you disappointed Martial nephew. Being one of my Sea Palace elders is not only Sea Palace considers that instead, he wants the Palace Master to apologize to an outsider. What is he? Martial uncle, the Palace Master also gives you a chance to leave and not participate in things here. Martial nephew promises to be respectful in the future filial piety to your senior, otherwise, I will blame Martial nephew for not being affectionate. It seems that we have nothing to say. Shah Hu's expression was sad. He also didn't expect Own happily returning to the Sea Palace, which had been gone for a long time. He would encounter these things. If he had known this, he might as well stay in gloomy Soul Island. Martial uncle is determined to fight against me, against Sea Palace. Jiang Weian squinted at Shah Hu, and he couldn't help but buckle his big hat. Shah Hu was silent, but his expression was a little sad. That's the case, then Martial nephew is also welcome. Jiang Weian suddenly shouted furiously, go. The words fell, and the entire Black Reef Island suddenly buzzed and trembled. The next moment, a bright light barrier shrouded the entire Black Reef Island, and the sea territory within a radius of 100 miles surged and waves 10 zhang. The incomparably rich water attribute spiritual energy gathered frantically towards Black Reef Island. In that mid-air, an alien animal composed of only water attribute spiritual energy quickly formed, densely packed. Naked eye I can't see it clearly, but there are also many weapons formed by water attribute spiritual energy. Destruction's aura dropping from the sky. Shah Hu's complexion greatly changed, and he exclaimed, tide sound and blue wave formation. It turns out that you have planned for a long time, but you would embarrass old man even if you use this formation. Jiang Weian said with a slight smile. Martial uncle said and laughed, this formation is exactly aimed at Martial uncle, after all, you are also the person in my Sea Palace. While speaking, Jiang Weian turned his head and looked towards Yang Kai. Not to deal with old Shah, then to deal with me. Yang Kai nonchalantly pointed his finger at Own's nose. Jiang Weian coldly smiled, I heard that Sect Master Yang is powerful. Even the people at the helm of Battle Sky Union, Thunder Typhoon Sect and Star Emperor Mountain 3 families are all in the hands of Sect Master Yang. This Palace Master doesn't dare to be careful. Jiang Palace Master has won the prize, a little good name, but it is an increasingly distort the truth. HMPH. Sect Master Yang is High Heaven Sect Master, Sea Palace everyone minds their own business with me, but since I dared to collude with Sea Clan, then I'm the mortal enemy of Sea Palace, Sect Master Yang, you are obediently surrender. Jiang Weian looked at Yang Kai proudly, as if with full confidence, Yang Kai will be helpless under this formation. Yang Kai, you go. Shah Hu suddenly shouts loudly, the tide of blue waves is my Sea Palace sect protecting formation. With the help of the abundant water spiritual energy of the surrounding sea territory, once activated, it will not continue. Absolutely, under the Void King stage, it is impossible for someone to break through this formation. But with your ability, it is not difficult to leave. You go first, and old man will break it for you. Ashamed it's martial uncle. I have a deep understanding of my Sea Palace sect protecting formation, but, martial uncle, you said so much to an outsider, isn't it a bit bad? Jiang Weian looked at Sha Hu with a sneer. Impudent, old man has already said that old man has no intention of competing with you, but you are so short-sighted. Sooner or later, Sea Palace will decline in your hands. For the sake of the ancestors, old man cannot say I'm going to fight with you too. Old Sha, don't be impatient. Yang Kai lightly patted Sha Hu's shoulder, with a calm and composed look. You, confused. Sha Hu stomped his feet in annoyance. Once this formation is started, the longer the time accumulates, the stronger the formidable power. If you continue to hesitate, I'm afraid that you will walk away. No more. I didn't want to go. Yang Kai laughed, it's just a formation. It's only, Sha Hu's expression was blank, his own formation was. Sha Hu felt weird in Yang Kai's comment. However, after seeing Yang Kai's extremely indifferent expression, his frowning brows stretched out again, looking thoughtful and said, since you say that, then old man won't waste his tongue. Be careful.